Ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves, because the US-China trade war has just taken a dramatic, history-defining twist. And let's not sugarcoat it. Trump just caved to China. That's right. The art of the deal has officially become the art of the retreat. What started as a high-stakes economic standoff, a bold strategy to choke off Chinese export revenue and kneecap their economy, is now unraveling, and fast. In less than 30 days, the mighty American trade war machine is buckling under its own weight. Scott Bessent, yes, Bessent, just admitted the obvious. The US cannot sustain a standoff with China. He called it what it really is, a trade embargo, and it's backfiring. A crushing 145% tariff on Chinese goods was supposed to break Beijing, but instead it's breaking America. We've been sounding the alarm for months, and now it's all coming true. The Treasury Secretary just waved the white flag. It's only a matter of time before the rest of the administration folds too. Just look at the tech exemptions. China holds the winning hand across the board. The US depends on Chinese imports to survive, to keep the economy running, and to keep consumer prices from spiraling out of control. 26% of all US imports come from China. That's over $100 billion worth of business in smartphones alone. 81% of smartphone imports originate from China. You cut that off, you're not punishing Beijing, you're punishing your own people. This isn't deal-making, this is economic self-destruction, and Trump knows it. If you're in Beijing right now, the strategy is clear. Sit back and watch America crumble from within. Just like Russia in the energy war, China holds the leverage, and they're in no rush to play ball. The US blinked twice in 10 days, and the Chinese have learned something crucial: patience wins. Here's what Washington still refuses to understand. The United States is deeply dependent on Chinese high-tech exports. Harvard's own research confirms it. Break the supply chain, you break your industries. Period. And China? They're not worried. US exports to China, mostly fuel and farm products, are easily replaceable. Beijing can buy soybeans from Brazil, wheat from Argentina, and oil from the Middle East. Russia's pipelines are open. China has options. And if you think they're alone, think again. While Washington obsesses over tariffs, China is building alliances. They just inked their biggest LNG deal ever with the UAE, a 15-year energy security pact that ensures they'll never need US gas again. While America's playing checkers, China's playing a multi-dimensional game of geopolitical chess. Meanwhile, Trump's trying to fight on all fronts, disengaging from Ukraine, waging a global trade war, and trying to contain China economically, all at once. But now, the plates are crashing down. The illusion of control is gone. That insane 145% tariff, even Trump's backing away now, publicly. He's already said it won't stay that high. Expect it to plunge to 40%, maybe even 30%. Beijing didn't even have to lift a finger. Trump's tone has shifted from fire and fury to respectful diplomacy. He's gone from playing hardball to being nice. Yes, really, because deep down the White House knows the American economy is hanging by a thread. And it doesn't stop with China. Trump's also backpedaling on Jerome Powell, the Fed chair he once wanted gone. Suddenly Powell is safe. Why? Because even Trump knows the financial system is too fragile to shake. The US economy is hyper-financialized. Pull the wrong string and the whole thing unravels. Mess with trade policy and you risk destroying the dollar. Try to punish China and you crash the bond market. Bessinger and Trump are now trapped in a vice, squeezed by global markets they can't control. Since Liberation Day, April 2nd, US markets have been in free fall. The dollar is down nearly 5%. The S&P 500 has lost 10%. Confidence is evaporating. Meanwhile, gold is soaring, up over 10%. That's not just a market move, that's a statement. Investors are rejecting US assets. And the reason? Because America tried to weaponize the economy, and the world fought back. Here's the dirty secret: the US can't afford this war. Not with a $1.3 trillion deficit in just 6 months of fiscal 2025. That's the second highest deficit in American history. And how do you fund that? Bonds. Lots of them. But if bond yields go to 4.5% or 5%, it's game over. The debt becomes unserviceable. Let's not forget, 73% of US expenditures are mandatory. Defense might be flexible, but no cuts have happened there either. So the borrowing continues, and foreign investors are taking notice. And now even Elon Musk is retreating. Doge, crashing, profits, imploding. Musk is pivoting back to Tesla as the government's fiscal dreams crash into cold, hard reality. Remember that big promise to slash the deficit by $2 trillion? Then it became $1 trillion, then $150 billion. Today, no one even knows if that number is real. That's how dire the financial situation is. So now what? Bessinger's only hope is to keep yields low or the US economy implodes. That means de-escalation. Backing down from the trade war is no longer a choice, it's a necessity. Over the last 3 weeks, we've seen an exodus of capital from US assets. Foreigners are dumping US treasuries, treasury auctions are looming, and without foreign buyers they could flop. Investors don't trust the long-term fiscal outlook. In fact, only 13.8% of them hold 20 or 30-year bonds. That's catastrophic. If no one shows up to buy, borrowing costs on everything, mortgages, car loans, credit cards, explode. That means consumer demand collapses, recession hits, game over. And then there's Japan. America's most loyal ally is furious. The US is jerking them around with tariff threats. 10% today, 100% tomorrow. Trump's erratic policies have pushed Tokyo to do the unthinkable, align with China. Yes, you heard that right. Japan is now coordinating with Beijing during this trade war. Trump's reckless approach has brought two historic rivals together. Think about that. Japan faces a terrible choice. Remain dependent on a US consumer base that's turning inward, or de-industrialize and move factories to America just to avoid tariffs. And Bessinger's message is clear: move your factories here, or pay up. That's not policy, that's extortion. Trump now wants to build a global coalition to isolate China, but even Japan won't play along. Why would they? Tariffs will wreck their economy, inflate their prices, and make them less competitive. Meanwhile, China retaliates. Let's talk facts. China is Japan's largest trading partner, not the US. When you include Hong Kong, they account for 23% of Japan's bilateral trade. Japan depends on China's markets and tech, and vice versa. Now imagine what happens if trade between Japan and China explodes. More economic integration, more tech cooperation, more distance from the US. And Japan isn't alone. Germany is watching. India is watching. Even American allies are hedging their bets. So here's the question. Will the US actually walk back these tariffs, or is this all a bluff? And beyond Japan, who else will pivot toward Beijing in this new global realignment? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, because this isn't just a trade war anymore. This is a global economic earthquake, and we're only feeling the first tremors.